Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. My name is Mila and this is Mila Explores, where I share anything travel related. So today we're gonna talk about Cinque Terre. So the beautiful Cinque Terre in Italy consists of 5 different very small villages: Corniglia, Monterosso, Riomaggiore, Vernazza and Manarola, and these are all like a part of the Cinque Terre area. It's in Western Italy, and they're also a UNESCO World Heritage Site as well as a national park. The area is stunning, but there are a few things that you should keep in mind if you're planning on visiting Cinque Terre, Italy. So we traveled to Italy in July last year in 2022, and we did visit Cinque Terre for like 3 days during our trip to Italy. That being said, in this travel guide I will share my best tips to Cinque Terre. So the first tip is to not travel to Cinque Terre in July or August, and I will explain why. So Cinque Terre consists of 5 different villages, and these villages are very small. So that being said, in July and August it's the worst time to visit there because it's crowded. The villages are small, so it's gonna be crowded everywhere. It was quite chaotic in some places actually. So I've heard that visiting Cinque Terre from April to June and September to October, it is a much better time to visit because the crowds are less and it's just gonna be a lot nicer. Because when I say that it's crowded, I really mean it's crowded. There's so many people here and everybody's trying to get on the trains that are actually going, because so many trains are cancelled or delayed. It's crazy. So yeah, I would never go here again in July. Look at this. Oh my god. And when you travel to Cinque Terre, the best way to get around is by train or by foot. I will talk about these things a bit later in this video, but the trains can be super packed in July and August, and that's what we experienced. And some trains were cancelled, which meant that the trains that did arrive on time or actually did go, they were packed, and it was not a fun experience because the train stations are quite small and they're packed and everything is packed. If you wanna like see the best of Cinque Terre, don't visit in July or August, and if you have to visit at that time of the year, then I'd suggest to just like visit these villages during the morning, like early in the morning, or a bit late at night even, or in the evening, because then there's obviously gonna be less people around. So Cinque Terre is not cheap, and if you want to save some money, then I'd recommend staying in La Spezia. La Spezia is actually not a part like of the real Cinque Terre area, but it's a very convenient place to stay because if you stay close to the train station in La Spezia, then the Cinque Terre villages are very easily accessible. So that's what we did. We stayed in La Spezia, and I think this was a really good choice because it's less crowded, the accommodations is a bit cheaper, and when we stayed very close to the train station in La Spezia, it was really easy to get around to the Cinque Terre villages. They're super close by, so it's just easy. And with the Cinque Terre card, you actually get access to the train that goes from La Spezia like onwards, so there's actually no reason to not stay in La Spezia. But if you do prefer to stay in the middle of everything and you want to stay in one of the Cinque Terre villages, then I'd recommend to really book in advance, like a lot in advance, because there are not a lot of accommodation options in Cinque Terre villages since they're so small, as I said. So if you want to stay in Cinque Terre, then you have to book in advance and just be ready to pay a bit more for your accommodation. So getting around in Cinque Terre. So as I said, we stayed in La Spezia close to the train station, and we used the Cinque Terre express trains to get around. And once we also hiked from Vernazza to Monterosso, which was a nice hike but super hot. Either way, you have to get the Cinque Terre card in order to be able to access the hiking trail trails or the train. So the Cinque Terre cards are available for 1 to 3 days, I believe, and the price of the card starts from €7.50 for 1 day hiking card, and I think it's, let me check, it's €18, about €18 for 1 day if you want to have both the options to hike and use the train. But if you're staying for longer and you're gonna use the train a lot and you want to do some hikes, then it's recommended to get the 2 day or 3 day card. I believe we had a 3 day Cinque Terre card, which was great for us because we stayed in the area for 3 days, and that way we had unlimited access to the hiking trails and the train. And as I mentioned, there are 2 different types of card. There's like a Cinque Terre card for only hiking trails or footpaths, and then there's a Cinque Terre card which includes the hiking trails and trains. You can choose to do either way, but these both options have like unlimited access to whichever you choose to do. But anyway, I will put a link in the description below so you can have a closer look at the information about the Cinque Terre card. And as I mentioned, we did hike one day. We did hike from Vernazza to Monterosso, which wasn't a hard hike, like it went uphill, downhill, so you have to have some kind of condition. But what I would recommend you do is to bring proper shoes, like good walking shoes, and also a lot of water, especially if you're hiking in summer, because it gets really hot. And I think we had like 35 or nearly 40 degrees Celsius, maybe not that much, but about 30 degrees Celsius. And we did bring some water, but we ended up drinking a lot of water. So if you're gonna do the hike, then definitely just bring enough water for your hike and proper walking shoes. If you like to do hikes and you're not like afraid of walking a bit, then the hikes are a great way to see the like surrounding area. The views were just stunning, and so if you want to have good views, then hiking is a great option. Another thing about the hiking trails, sometimes they can be closed due to some conditions on the footpaths or something like that. So make sure that before you go hiking on the trails that you actually check if it's open or not, so you don't get your expectations too high and then it's like closed. So I know when we went, one of the hiking trails was actually closed, and I checked right now that the hiking trail from Vernazza to Monterosso, which we did, is closed now. I'm filming this in March 2023, but this can change. So there's the Cinque Terre like official website, which will tell you all about the accessibility of the hiking trails and also the length and if they're like intermediate, hard, or beginner friendly. So definitely make sure to check that. They also have great information about the Cinque Terre cards and the trains and all other practical stuff. So let's move on to things to do in Cinque Terre. So of course, like the best thing to do is obviously just walk around because the villages are beautiful. They're like full of these colorful buildings and stunning views. And even though it was like insanely crowded when we visited Cinque Terre in July, it was still like the views were actually really nice. If you want to do something more special, there's a lot of like vineyards and wine terraces surrounding the Cinque Terre villages, like the hills of Cinque Terre. And we actually visited one winery, which was really, really nice because it was uphill. We had a beautiful views over Manarola, and yeah, it was just lovely. So if you're a friend of wine and some snacks and beautiful views, then I highly recommend visiting Cantina Capellini. It's the winery or vineyard that we decided to visit on our trip in Cinque Terre. Visiting the Cantina Capellini in Cinque Terre was one of my favorite things to do on our whole trip, like on our whole stay in Cinque Terre. And we chose to go with the, let me check, Agrizena experience, which included wine tasting and some small snacks. Or actually, there were quite like big snacks. We didn't actually have to eat dinner that night, but that meant we had some snacks and some wine tasting over like the views of the sea and the surroundings. It was just really great, and the price for that was 30 euros, but I do recommend booking in advance if that's something you would like to do. And to get to the Cantina Capellini from Manarola, you can take the bus. I don't remember the number of the bus, but there is a bus leaving from like the village of Manarola uphill to the Cantina Capellini, so you don't have to walk. It's an uphill like a journey, so I wouldn't recommend walking there. Just make sure that when you want to leave from the vineyard of Cantina Capellini back to Manarola that you catch the latest bus. You have to check the timetables. So the Cinque Terre is located on the coast, which means that there are good swimming opportunities, so definitely make sure to bring your swimmers when you travel across the villages. So Monterosso is the only village in the Cinque Terre area with the proper beach, like it's a good sized beach. The other villages just have some smaller points that you can go swimming from, or just a small harbor, or like a small like teeny tiny beach. But even though that's the case, you can still go swimming in most of the villages, so I would highly recommend you bring swimmers whenever you're traveling across the Cinque Terre villages. Which brings me to my next point, which is what to actually bring with you when you're like exploring the Cinque Terre villages. So as I said, swimmers, like bikinis, swimming pants, whatever you want to call them. If you like to go swimming in the summer, it's really nice if it's hot outside to just go swimming, and there's some really cool swimming spots in the villages. And a towel, of course, but then also don't bring too much, because if you're gonna be walking a lot, which we definitely did, like uphill, downhill, a lot of stairs and stuff like that, then just pack very lightly. Bring a water bottle, bring good walking shoes, bring swimmers and towel, and you're all set. So I hope you enjoyed this Cinque Terre travel guide, and I hope this gave you some insights and some tips on what to think about and what you should take into consideration when visiting Cinque Terre. If you're gonna ask me if I recommend visiting Cinque Terre, then yes, it's worth visiting, but just pick the time of the year a bit more smarter than us, or be prepared to really like stuck in the crowds. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel to see more travel related content, and like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!